So this week we're talking interior cleaning, specifically in this case headlining, how to do it, how to get good results, how to not damage it, obviously depending on what materials and everything you're looking at. But that's the crux of today's video. Let's get into it. So I'll include alt timestamps depending on which part of the conversation you want to get to. If you're looking at products or methods or actual in the car and then cleaning, feel free to do that and jump around as you see fit. I know that sort of helps people and navigate the videos and get to the bits they want to get to. So depending on what sort of material is, then that's going to determine your main course of action between how aggressive you're going to be, whether you're looking at using brushes and things like that, whether you're sticking to microfibers, what sort of aggressive cleaners you're looking at. If you're looking at normal fabrics or materials, maybe you can get a bit more aggressive. If you're looking at suede, alcantara, or something like that. So first off, you're going to have to be careful as to what cleaners you're using in terms of products wise, your APCs and how you're diluting them. And then as a secondary thing to that, you're going to have to look at how aggressive you're going to be with the material itself. So with any suede or alcantara headlining, like we're going to look at today, you cannot be overly aggressive. So you can't be going in there straight with a cleaning brush, like a leather brush for instance, and saying, I'm going to give it a real good scrub, it's got some marks in it, I need to really get those out. If you do that, all you're going to do is damage the material. So you might have seen over years that heavy contact areas such as steering wheels and everything that use alcantara, so it tends to wear quite easily, and if it's subject to heavy use, it can look dirty, it can ruin the pile of the alcantara, and then eventually you'll end up with bobbling on the surface. So that is obviously totally undesirable. You don't want that condition. So to try and stay away from that and prevent those things, you're better off periodic cleaning of these sort of materials and keeping them in good condition and clean in the first place. If you're looking at darker suedes, alcantaras, it's not going to be as bad for marks and everything. If you're looking at a headlining similar to mine, which is really light coloured, it's like a beige or a cream, same as some of the dashboard leather and everything, then in this case, depending on how people are using it or if they're touching certain areas when they're getting in and out, then these places can become either contaminated, damaged, or just dirty, depends what you're doing. On the Range Rover, an area that tends to get used, then people who don't know how to get in and out of a car properly seemingly tend to touch the A-pillar for some reason. So like they're using it, putting the hand on it, using it then to swing in and out depending which side they're on. You can clearly see when people have done it. There's literal finger scrape marks in the suede or the alcantara, so it's clearly evident what people are doing over time. Then that turns dirty and grubby. The material can turn bobbly, so that is obviously undesirable. You don't want that, so you'll try and want to get people to not do that in the first place. That's the number one prevention. Instead of looking at after the fact, how do you try and clean it up or make it look as good as possible? If you don't do that in the first place, that's obviously better than not. And then other areas where you might get kids touching the headlining or something in the very back, maybe behind the panoramic roof, or in my car, the sun visors as well are the same material, so obviously they see heavier use than most. So if you've got, like my wife sits in there, maybe they're touching it with dirty hands, or they've got makeup or something on when they're doing the makeup in the car. If you're going somewhere and they don't have time to do it in the house, or they're trying to save a bit of time, those are the areas that can come really dirty and contaminated really quick. I like to periodically clean those, and then if I do see anything specific, I'll then give it just a quick clean on that specific area. And that's generally how I go about treating it. You're looking at maybe, depends what frequency and how dirty it's going to get. Some people once a year is more than good enough. You might step up to twice a year, but you shouldn't see heavy use. You shouldn't be washing it 3-4 times a year, maybe like you would leather if it's getting a bit dirty, or sweaty skin on it, or sun creams, something like that, where you're trying to keep up to it a bit more. Hopefully these areas have a bit less contact time and should be a bit easier to keep clean. So what I like to do then is I've got the old faithful back again, which is these foam pumps. So these are really good, as I've mentioned before in other videos. We've looked at these against spray bottles. If you're not looking to get an overly wetted surface and you're just looking to put some product out without atomizing it and breathing these chemicals and cleaners in, these are a great option. So something like this, it's absolutely perfect. You're inside the car yourself, obviously you're either spraying or cleaning inside the car. You want to try and reduce that contamination and those airborne particulates. So using this will do that. You'll just get nice concentrated foam. In this case today, what we're going to do is we'll go straight onto a microfiber. So this is our other part then for the low aggression in terms of our cleaning setup. So we're going to go nice soft microfiber with a pH neutral cleaner down at 20:1 dilution. And this will give us, more than good enough cleaning power. So it'll give it that newer look. It'll look fresher, cleaner, thicker in terms of the pile in the alcantara. it won't look like it's been sort of touched or scraped or hands run it across it or anything. And it'll bring that smell back, you know, if you've got anything that's been sprayed in there that's, you know, lodged in the headlining or anything in terms of any sprays, aerosols, perfumes, stuff like that that might stick around. This will help neutralise those and give your car just a generally fresher, cleaner smell. So this is what we're going to look at. We'll get set up outside and we'll show you what it's about. So if you wanted to take the aggression up a step, say you were talking fabrics or normal materials for headliners, then you could certainly do that. What you would still want to do is use something like this as a pH neutral APC, you know, diluted at a similar thing to this. So this is 20:1 still, like I mentioned before. But what you might do in that case is you can be a little bit more aggressive with the material without risk of damaging or bobbling or anything appearing. And in that case, you would step up to one of these leather brushes. This will obviously give you a bit more deeper clean, a bit better agitation and general cleaning all round really. So doing that would take that up like you would a fabric seat in terms of maybe, you know, adding that little bit of extra aggression, and then that'd be up to you. In that instance then, what you could also do if you're running an extraction tool or a, you know, something similar like that we've had on the channel before, if you're running something like my Vax extractor, you could use this for maybe a pre-clean if you wanted, and then if you've overly wetted the surface, maybe you've used a spray version of this instead of this to get a bit more of a deeper clean and get in there with the leather brush. You could then run the extractor over that and take any excess moisture out of there and just help that drying process. In the summer or in hotter climates, that's not so much of a worry in terms of getting the car all aired out and dried out. If you're doing this in the depths of winter and it's really wet outside, and so you're talking high humidity and low temperatures, then you won't want to leave that headline in that condition. That's how you end up with, you know, condensation and everything inside the car, and you can end up with mold issues longer term if that's something you're doing on a more regular basis, leaving your car in that sort of condition internally without drying it out properly. So you've got to be wary of that depending on climate. But for today, that shouldn't be as much of an issue. We're not using leather brushes or spray bottles today. We're using the foam pump, we're using a microfiber. We're going to go for the gentlest sort of effective clean possible, where you're still getting some of that cleanness and freshness back into the fabrics, but you're not being overly aggressive as to damage them. So in terms of what we're looking at in this case then, on my Range Rover, you're looking at obviously the full headlining, excluding the panoramic roof. A, B, C, and part of the D pillars are actually covered on it. So this part here is actually plastic, and then as soon as you get up to this is a material as discussed before. So you're either going to be looking at generally suede or Alcantara. And we're looking at roughly half the door pillars in these cases. So again, as I mentioned before, you're also looking at, generally when you're looking at these sort of light headlinings and materials, as well as the A, B, C and D pillars as I mentioned, you will be looking up top. And all these are the same as well. So these will be suede, Alcantara, if that's what you suspect. And I remember getting this car, and one of the things I'd noticed was, you know, people were putting their hands on here or around here, and basically what they're doing then, you can obviously see their finger marks and everything that leaves behind, and over time doing that makes the material dirty itself. Just in having the pile pushed different ways, it can make it look dirtier in certain other parts than it actually is. So if you can avoid doing that in first place, that's the best case. If not, try and keep up to it, get it as clean as possible. A couple of squirts of this Polestar on. You're not atomising chemicals, you're not doing anything overly dangerous or anything, or above and beyond what you would normally in terms of breathing anything in. There's no odours or scents or anything when you're foaming it on like this, so it makes it super effective, safe cleaning. So there it is then, easy as that. A couple of foam straight on. You give it a little scrub in, you know, obviously when you've done that you make sure you're coming across it all in one direction. Leave it in a nice uniform manner, and don't look like anything's been pulled, scraped across it or anything, and give you that contrasting colours that can make it look dirty even if it isn't. So we'll, that's that done. We'll get on with cleaning a bit more now, and we'll see what it's looking like. You can now easily move on to these larger roof sections, which are probably not the most difficult things you're going to do, but certainly the largest areas. Can actually make them a bit easier than sort of doing the pillars around the car. One sort of flattish, and you know, it's certainly in the rear, and if not, these areas that have a slight curvature to them aren't too difficult to clean. Like I mentioned before then, it's easy to just give that a quick scrub. Once you've finished, go over it all in the same direction and you'll give it that nice uniform finish. While we're here then, this is a pretty good position for cleaning this whole back area. I generally switch sides as I'm going to do the pillars and everything, and it's actually easy to get the very rearmost parts from the boot or the tailgate area and really get under there. It makes it super easy. Front wise, obviously, you know, sat in the front seats, you can easily get to A pillars, B pillars, all the front of the panoramic roof and everything, and the headlining, and then you can also get to the vanity mirrors or the sun visors while you're doing that. Parts, super easy. Let's get that all spread on as you would normally. Put that into the surface. So where we are then in the front, we've just cleaned part of the B pillars, C pillars, D pillars on both sides now, and also the rearmost part, you know, from the tailgate and everything. Now we're looking at sort of B pillar onwards on the headlining, front of the B pillars, A pillars, front of the headlining, and then the sun visors, vanity mirrors. After that then, what we're going to do is just give the quick going over on the dashboard and everything, get a little bit of dust and everything that's on there. It's not dirty as such, just some light dust from not having been cleaned for a couple of weeks, and then that'll do us. So I mentioned it before then, with these sort of materials, we'll be looking at suede, Alcantara. You are better keeping ahead of the game in terms of keeping them clean. If you let them get really dirty, mucky, grubby in the first place, and then you can't go too aggressive when you come to cleaning methods and products and everything, you're just going to make life harder than it should be. So if you keep ahead of it like this, it should help keep on top of it. Obviously behaviours is one of those things as well, where if you can prevent people touching this and getting it dirty in the first place, depending who's in and around your cars. If you've got kids, you know, it's never going to work too well, but hopefully they shouldn't be touching these areas as much. What you tend to get is people who are a bit more immobile or a bit older tend to look at grabbing onto grab handles, A pillars and stuff, and B pillars when they're looking at getting in and out. Those are the people you tend to got to watch out for and those sort of things. That gives it a quick clean, gets it all going one direction in terms of the pile and the material and everything. So it gives it that cleaner look, freshens it up a bit in terms of a scent or anything, if anything's been stuck in the material. Just makes it look overall better. So I should mention, obviously you've not seen it on camera, but I have flipped this a couple of times, and then where I've, you know, just wiped those glosses and everything, again that's on a fresh side. So it's not the side that we're then scrubbing into Alcantara. So say you accidentally used a quarter of it to clean a door card or something that had a bit of dirt on it and something you'd remove from the kick plate, something like that. You don't want to then obviously be rubbing that into your suede headlining, so just be mindful of that as well. Make sure you keep turning over fresh sides regularly and you should have no issues. Again, all we're going to do now then is repeat the same thing on the other side, so we'll spare you that. And we'll give the dashboard and everything around the cockpit and controls a quick once over, get rid of some of this surface dust. That should do us. So there you have it then. We've made that process super quick, super easy and simple. Nothing more to it really. You get a good all-round sort of pH neutral all-purpose cleaner with you know, sensible dilution, in this case at 20:1. You get a nice clean, decent pile microfiber, nothing too aggressive, nothing too short pile or anything. You don't need to go super lavish either. You're not buffing on clear coat or anything like that. If you're using a 300 GSM towel or anything, that'll be perfectly fine. So we've done a full like suede headlining in this case, so we've done right from front to back. All vanity mirrors, A, B, C, D pillars that have all got a sort of half suede on them. So unfortunately, and started raining really quite heavily, so I've had to sort of scoot back inside the garage because all the camera equipment were getting wet. All the door cards and everything from the doors being open, they were just getting wet through. So in this case, what we're looking at in this example is looking at quite fragile headlinings in this case. If you're looking at normal materials, sort of fabric and everything, you can get away with a lot more. You can really give those products a good wetting and a good scrubbing with a brush and maybe an extraction. When you're then looking at suedes or alcantaras, that again changes the game. You've got to be a lot more careful both with your agitation method and the chemicals you're using. You'll get used to it and get used to the sort of motions and the angles you need to sort of contort yourself into sometimes to get the best possible clean on these headlinings. So you're looking at about 15-20 minutes, somewhere around that time scale for doing a full headlining in the car, which again isn't overly onerous. If you're doing that either separate or as part of your maintenance and interior cleaning, then it's not going to add a huge amount of time on. Or you can save this, like I've said, more. This should be one of those really infrequent jobs you do. Maybe you're doing it once a year, something like that. Give it a bit of a freshen up, even if it doesn't look visibly dirty. It's a good idea to keep on top of it, give it that maintenance clean, especially with these sort of harder to look after materials, and stay on top of them by doing this. And yeah, something you should definitely give a go if you haven't already, or you're wondering how should you clean a headlining. Like I say, if you're looking at fabric headlinings just in a normal general run-of-the-mill car, then you can be a bit more liberal with cleaners and application methods, agitation methods, those sorts of things, so you're not tied into a microfiber. You can look at using a leather brush or something like that, get that bit more deep cleaning agitation if you've used a spray bottle to wet through or something. But for this case, and our case today, and generally most cases, if you're just giving it a maintenance clean and a bit of a freshen up, this is more than good enough on a sort of annual basis. You should be fine at that. If you're new to the channel, I'd appreciate if you consider subscribing. Like the video if you haven't already. So we've got some regular commenters now on the channel as well that seem to be in and amongst every video, so I appreciate that engagement and those comments and recommendations and everything. People are telling you what they like to do, what they've seen, what they know works in their cases. Again, area dependent. I have some certain comments as well, depending on water quality and things like that and what you would do for your processes. So that's always nice to see. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.